It's this sense of place, this relationship to it, this sense of caring for it as something that I'm related to, like this sense of kinship with it. It wasn't just a random collection of organisms and sea critters and the fluidity of water, the reflection of light, but it really did feel like I had this deep emotional, maybe even spiritual relationship with this environment. And it shocked me that many people didn't see that. And I think that's what really got me going on this idea of how can we collectively show our respect for this amazing environment. I mean, how many places in the world, right downtown, have real wildness? And it's remarkable that Vancouver, one of those beautiful cities in the world, parading itself as the greenest city on the planet, has somehow neglected the wildness that's right at the feet of these high-rise towers.
There used to be creeks all along here, all the way along this side of Vancouver here. And that's what attracted a lot of the spring salmon here, the Chinook. We call them Chinook today. We call them koks in our language, koks. That means the one with the black mouth, eh?
This map was very important to me. I found it in Bruce MacDonald's book, Vancouver, A Visual History, 1992. Bruce MacDonald is a historian. You can't argue with this map. It's the truth, but it's astounding really when you look at it, what was here, right? But that's Main Street. That was the first bridge. China Creek Park. There was a creek that went into Falls Creek from there. China Creek was a huge stream that started at 45th and Renfrew. That's the top of the Falls Creek watershed on the east. 45th and Renfrew. That's a long way up, right?
What you call Science World today, that was a village called Squatch Eyes. And that word means sturgeon, because this used to be water full of sturgeon. Tons of sturgeon in here at one time. There was octopus that was caught here. There's clam beds all along, all throughout Burrard Inlet, English Bay, Falls Creek. There was processing spots between all these areas here where people would fish, collect, process, and then bring it to villages to feed the elders, to feed the people by way of canoe.
It was during Expo 86 that the first dragon boat races took place in North America in Falls Creek. When we paddle out here and we celebrate Sinophone, Asian Canadian culture, it's a public display. What's happening on this water is part of a larger tapestry of Asian Canadian history. And it also echoes back to the way that this water has been used by Indigenous folks since time immemorial. The water here means a lot to me. It's a place where I found community. It's where I developed my self-esteem as a young adult, as a queer individual. Being able to be on the water with a bunch of other folks also going through that journey in life is really transformative.
When you're on the water, it just makes everything seem calmer, which when you live in a city, things don't always feel calm. It's always really nice is to just get out and then relax and just watch everything go by. I think our kids definitely appreciate that and love watching like the seals that we see pop up all the time when we're out, and we just kind of get to see the city from a different perspective than I think a lot of people have.
I can hear it under the water. You know, sometimes little kind of barnacle things will attach itself to my hull, and I can hear them kind of making this little chittering noise on the hull at night. Everything gets quiet. The bird life and the seals, but also just in just the texture, the light, the sparkling of light off the water, getting up early in the morning and just sensing. I mean, I can feel it right now, just the energy in the air. You're in the midst of this very dynamic, kinetic environment, and it's hard not to feel it inside and then to get the sense, I am part of this. I am deeply part of this. This is what is in me. It's outside of me. I am deeply part of this. Bit by bit, we are looking at what's here. So last year we had this tremendous project, BioBlitz with Hakai Institute.
Well, over a 5-month period, the community were logging their observations of things alive around Falls Creek. And then for an intensive weekend, we went out and did a lot of water sampling to look at the DNA that's shed by organisms in the water. And then we took mud samples to see what was in the sediments of Falls Creek, and we did plankton tows to see what kind of plankton were floating in the water. Basically just trying to piece together what sort of biodiversity exists in Falls Creek. So there's generally this perception that Falls Creek is dead, maybe. It doesn't seem like maybe there's a lot of life other than like seagulls and cormorants. But our study showed that there's a lot more out there than I think most people think. Through people's observations, just in the 5-month period, probably over 500 species were found around here in Falls Creek. And then we've been adding to it over time with more like genetically identified things as well. Maybe we're up to probably over like 800 different species of critters in and around Falls Creek, but we're still kind of getting genetic IDs and really figuring that out. We saw lots of northern anchovy in the water, as well as herring. A diver that was out during our BioBlitz saw dogfish out there, and so that I thought was pretty cool. We saw a lot of DNA for 3-spine stickleback. Falls Creek, despite the fact that it's very shallow, was very stratified. It's very fresh on the surface, probably from like the Fraser River maybe, and then quite salty at the bottom, so just over like 5 meters of depth. All of this area, Kitts Beach, Spanish Banks, it's actually like kind of fresher. It's not that fresh, but so if you go looking at intertidal creatures around here, you won't find as high of a diversity as you might find in saltier waters, just because the freshness of the water kind of limits marine intertidal creatures that we're used to thinking about. There's not like boatloads of sea stars right up on the rocks. You'll see some, but not nearly as many as you will like if you go to Deep Cove, because it's saltier over there, fresher over here, because like the river will come in and kind of hug along this coast. Yeah, so those sort of dynamics also influence the health of an ecosystem too. Like if you're not mixing the water, then it can become like a little stagnant and the nutrients can get depleted, which they were when we sampled at the surface. There was barely detectable nitrogen. But our results show for sure down towards Science World, there's no way out for the water, and so it's very like water comes in and then goes back out. But I think because of that dog leg, as you head up towards the Canby Bridge, the circulation back there is kind of poor, and I think that that really impacts how that part of Falls Creek is kind of less healthy. You know, like when they take water samples out there, sometimes there's more bad bacteria, not bad bacteria, but like fecal coliforms and stuff, mostly coming probably from birds or people dumping their sewage from their boats, I guess. I think that makes it harder for that area of Falls Creek to kind of be cleaner and healthier. But I think that as you work your way out, the water does move a little bit more, and there is more opportunities for mixing the water column and nutrients and stuff like that, and hopefully making for a healthier ecosystem. I was expecting to see like bacteria that I think of as gross bacteria, like maybe pathogens or maybe bacteria that are from human waste. And they were definitely not the dominant part of the microbial community out there, right? It was the normal microbes we see farther out at sea. And so for me, I felt good about that. It was like, at least in the water column, it's not so gross. Maybe people shouldn't be so worried, but I think obviously there probably still needs to be a lot more done to continue to restore Falls Creek and to make sure that people respect it and that boaters respect it. I felt like it was promising.
With Hakai Institute, this is our second year where we've been doing a light trap project to really look at one particular species, the Dungeness crab, which has tremendous economic and cultural importance for British Columbia. Very important to the Indigenous people up and down the Salish Sea. So volunteers every other day go to our light trap and do an analysis, count how many of the larval Dungeness crab has shown up. We've been working with people like Nature Vancouver. We proposed to them that we start looking at the whole strata of bivalves, oysters, mussels, clams. And it's so important because when people do this, people get this feeling that they're actually making an important contribution. They're filling in the knowledge gaps of what we know and don't know about the Salish Sea. And through that, they get this sense that what they're doing is meaningful because it is the data that is needed to know what we need to do next. It's one of the most powerful things that we've done is to engage people in, getting their gumboots on and going out and actually doing something that matters.
You know what? Today is a day where we live in a place that's based on consumerism. And we don't no longer live together in harmony. So this way of life, you look around here now, it's all closed together, but it's all separated at the same time. So you got cats living in this building here, but they don't even know their neighbor downstairs. You ain't got to go to the water and fish no more. You ain't got to make a trap anymore. You ain't got to wait hours on end to get something in your trap. No, it's all right there. So again, the work in order to receive the benefit from the ocean has been removed. I'm saying that if we don't have a relationship with work, with value of receiving, we can't get anywhere in terms of recultivating respect of water, animal, land, trees, water, river, all that stuff.
We've been campaigning now for almost 2.5 years for the idea of some kind of special status for False Creek. The idea of environmental personhood for False Creek gives us a pathway to get there. We have no pathway as just citizens to declare False Creek a urban marine park. That is the goal, and this idea of environmental personhood is such a good way of doing it, because that recognizes legally certain natural entities like rivers, forests, mountains, like Mauna Loa in Hawaii is seen by the indigenous people of Hawaii as their relative, and they have a responsibility, a duty of care to protect it. There is going to be a point, a critical mass, at which point people get it. That we have the responsibility. We can't just outsource it to governments right now. What we are trying to do now is to figure out how we can support each other, because actually Vancouver is quite wealthy, or it has quite wealthy parts to it. When you look around, you see that this is some of the most prosperous neighborhoods in all of Canada. We don't have to wait for governments to do it. We don't have to compete with one another. What we have to do is start making really good arguments to the people who live right around here, not just the people, but the businesses, the corporations, and say, hey folks, we can do something, but we all need to do it together.
I remember this very clearly. Finn Donnelly, he was a marathon swimmer and he swam the Fraser River twice. And he created the Rivershed Society, and he swam into False Creek for BC Rivers Day. So he swam into False Creek, and I remember seeing him, and he was gathering near Science World, and he said, this is what I can do, what can you do? Something's got to happen. There's got to be a revolution. We have work to do.
For our Dragon Boat Festival, the big one that we have in June, we invite Taoist priests to come down and bless the water and bless the dragon boats. And there is something that changes in the 1 hour that that ceremony takes place, that this very ordinary becomes a sacred place. And I think that it's a very strong and important reminder that this water is sacred and that we do have a duty to take care of it, to celebrate it, right? But also to take care of it. I also see like Dragon Boat BC and all the other organizations on the water having a larger role in the maintenance, the sustaining of this space in light of climate change.
Helping people understand what's out there also might help people have more respect and then therefore be more into restoring Falls Creek, just because I think the more you know, the more you want to do good by something.
When you don't have that kind of connection to water or what's inside the water, then the water's just the water. That's why you see the garbage in the water, you see all these buildings, all their pipes are going into the water and they're shooting all the stuff in the water. If you teach people how to use the water, utilize the resource in the water, you teach them how to respect the water, yeah? You teach them how to fish, you teach them how to hunt in the water, you teach them how to work for what benefits they get from the water. You teach them how to travel on the water, how to get places. If you teach them how to do that, you'll cultivate respect between the people and the water. Everybody here has to be on the same page. All the marine people, all the businesses, every single person that has a family business here, all these people that live in the apartments around here, they all have to be on board. You have to take them on foot. You have to walk around. You have to learn what's here, learn what was here before, and learn what's here now, which isn't very much.
It needs to be protected. It has rights. The problem is, of course, is that nature does not have a voice that it can speak with. So this movement is an effort to find a way of representing nature with human voices. And if we can start to present people with the opportunity to sign a pledge, a personal pledge, I vow to respect Falls Creek as an entity deserving protection, we can slowly start working our way towards the idea of a national urban marine park. The final goal is a place where the marine environment, the whole complex ecology, is seen as something that we're tremendously proud of, that we've been able to accomplish this. And people naturally will want to protect it because it brings so much to them. But the personhood and the idea that it will have legal recognition is, I think, a campaign that we can do person by person, heart by heart, to the point where there's kind of a groundswell or whatever the aquatic comparable is to a wave, a swell of affection and dedication to that idea.